your lights on. Line wheel lids open, aerators running. When you come through, kill switch hooked up. Life jacket zip and buckle all the way up, guys.
Today the lake is in rough shape. Largemouth bass virus devastated the population. Record amounts of rain. Tornado on the day before the tournament. Fishing will be challenging. Fish will be few and far between. Lake Ft Gibson. Today, it's going to have to be about the competition.
The Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail is presented by Long John Silver's.
Hello and welcome to our show. Welcome to the very first Citgo Bassmaster Central Open event of the year. I'm Tommy Sanders along with Jerry McInnes and Jimmy Dykes. And Jerry, as we said at the top of the program here on challenging Lake Ft Gibson in Oklahoma, it's not always about the number of fish. Sometimes it's about the competition.
Challenging?
That's a nice way to put it for the lake this week.
Is that Tommy Sanders' way of saying fishing stinks?
I'm being nice. I'm being nice.
It's pretty tough out there. But you know what? These guys under this terrible, terrible condition, tornadoes along with bad fishing, everything going against them, but we've got professional fishing, I think, at its best, because you got one guy in there that, in spite of everything else, figures how to catch these fish, and he wins this tournament.
We're looking forward to that. Also to your expertise. Also the expertise of our special guest today, a man who is on fire. He's won 2 tour events already this year, Davey Height of Prosperity, South Carolina. Now, Jimmy Dykes, the tour events are a different format than the one we'll be seeing today.
Yeah, different than the tour event we saw last week where you had a pro and an amateur in the boat. In the open division, you're going to have 2 pros. Now, that's going to bring up some variables. Who has control of the front of the boat? What about the water selection? And also, these open events are a 3-day event instead of a 4. A lot of different decisions have to be made. Kind of throws things up in the air a little bit.
Never works out the way you draw it up on paper, right, Jerry?
I hate this format.
I know you do. I know you do.
This is the way the guys used to do it all the time, though, so I bet you that Ken Cook and Jay Ellis can probably sort it out for us a little.
They're the guys.
Open tournaments are the only tournaments anymore in the country where 2 pros get paired together.
We're required by rules to have a discussion and decide how we're going to divide up our day. If we can't decide whose boat we're going to take, we'll toss a coin. If we take my boat, typically I'd fish the first half of the day. We'd fish my partner's water the second half of the day, and he'd drive the boat if he wanted to, and we'd divide up the day that way.
If we're fishing Ken's spots, he runs the trolling motor, gets the first cast, all the good cover.
It's important for both competitors to work together so that each person has an equal advantage and so that it's advantageous as possible for both competitors.
Then when we go to my spots, the common etiquette is for me to run the trolling motor, get the first cast all the spots.
For instance, if I had a good topwater bite going on in the morning, it would be foolish of my partner to want to go to his afternoon fish first thing in the morning.
We don't always split the day up 50-50.
So we could go to my half the day first and fish topwater fish.
There's no formula for how you split your day up.
And then after the sun was up, if he had a better pattern, that's why we have a discussion, so we can decide how our 2 patterns will potentially mesh together.
You just gotta go with what you think's gonna work best that day. It might be 70% of the time on his water and 30% on mine, or vice versa, or just kind of go by feel and see how the day plays out.
Well, as we get ready for the start on day number 2 of this competition on Lake Ft Gibson, Wagner, Oklahoma, we got a bunch of guys, 320 professional anglers, as a matter of fact, who've got to be a little hopeful that it's better than the first day of the competition. What a terrible day.
And you know what, Tommy? They are all out there in the boat. Homer and his partner kind of whooping it up here at the beginning, but they're all out there in their boats, optimistic, as you said, that things will be better today. And you know what? A bass fisherman is always that way. They think that it'll just change around the day. Hey, 180 of them didn't even get a strike yet.
One limit. That was Homer Humphries. Only one other guy that caught 4 keepers.
Good luck, Homer. Put that hat back on.
Got it, baby.
The Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail is brought to you by Citgo, and in part by Mercury, and by Triton.
Citgo Bassmasters Tournament Trail, Lake Fort Gibson, Wagner, Oklahoma. Our first look at the place where Homer Humphries, our leader, is going to be fishing. Along with those conditions, you could put fishing tough.
You caught some fish on the fronts of these two, Keith?
No, I ain't got him. I hung them on the coming out from that back.
All on the other side over here?
Yeah. Everybody's going up in there, and I'm just... Here's what I lost when I did with that yesterday. Need a steering wheel to get him out of here.
Here on Lake Fort Gibson, you don't find a whole lot of docks, so when you find a big congregation of them like this, it bears looking into, bears prospecting a little bit.
There he is.
Got him?
And you want to remember now, these are floating docks, so there's not much structure going down into the water. Boy, there's still good hiding places, though.
You just go get him, Homer. Go.
You may not even keep.
Too close.
I believe it will.
Okay.
Look at that deformed fish.
That bass is a little hump back there. Homer was referring to the deformed fish. That's a symptom of that largemouth bass virus, about which not a whole lot is known, but we're going to find out a little bit more later on today.
And I tell you what, Tommy, I don't think we can... I don't think any of our anglers should just jump on the bass virus as a real excuse. Same way with the weather, you know. I don't think they can really blame everything on the weather. They've just really had a hard time locating this fish, and that's just all there is to it. Those other things play into it, but these good anglers like Homer are not using it too much as an excuse.
You know, it's about time I caught that first yesterday, man.
You can catch you one about every 4 hours, man. You're a step butt. You got another one?
Good. Ooh, did you see that? Yeah, if we get in a bigger mess in here. You know, Woo Day gave me this board. Look at him, baby, that's 2 of them.
2 fish in the boat for Homer Humphries. He's got to be feeling good at this point on Lake Fort Gibson in eastern Oklahoma.
And there's the big picture of where we're at, and here's the main thing, Tommy. Look at that creek channel, how it goes into the bank underneath those boat docks. That's actually North Bay, not too far from the takeoff, and that is the spot that we're going to talk more about that, but that's a darn good spot that Homer has found.
What happens here, we're losing our rock. And that means when you lose that rock like that, we done get up on this flat, and, it's like 7, 8, 9 foot here, and those fish are just not up there. They more on that big rock. I'm just turn around and go back the other way.
Yeah, and so I was keen on that type of stuff, you know. I know why I'm not catching them as good as you are.
Well, old Homer's crankbait hits in shallow water and he pulls it down into probably 6, maybe even 10 feet of water.
That old fish had a smorgasbord coming out of there a while ago, didn't it? Woo! You know, usually you use a 10 and 12 pound test line on your crankbait. And where the depth of fish are, we use at McCoy lean green 15 pound, and it's working good. You really don't have to worry about hanging them up and breaking them up.
Tough as the fishing's been on this lake, I decided to go for a big bite. Hopefully it'll pay off for me. I was catching crankbait fish before the cutoff, and then decided I better find something different in case the crankbait shut down on me, which I think it has because of the rain. So, never caught a spinnerbait fish at all. During practice period until the last day, caught a 5-pounder. So I knew it'd probably be a good bait sometime during the week.
I caught one of my bigger ones right out in here yesterday. And I say one of them out of the 3.
One that actually both touched both ends at the same time on the board, huh?
But my partner, he broke his line on one right in here. And he lost, and I jumped the good one off right there. So we know there's 2 or 3 good ones left.
Far between Charlie Campbell and all these guys. One bite can be very important to them.
Russ Gregory saying that he's fishing for one bite. A lot of these guys are doing that. Tommy, how well do you know Charlie Campbell?
Well, I'm not real well, but I know he's a good guy.
He is the greatest. And you know what? He invented the Zara spook, I believe.
Yeah.
He's a topwater fisherman. It's kind of surprising, though, that we've switched over to Homer Humphrey now, who is throwing a topwater bait.
I hate a topwater.
Oh, I do too. It's my least favorite way to catch him.
I'm glad one didn't blow up on it.
So wound up you jerked it away from him anyway, wouldn't you?
That's my practice.
Man.
We got to settle down here.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, if you don't think I'm not willing to think I've got it beat here.
He's throwing a popper with his hooks all being in from practice. There wasn't a hook on there. Man, if one had hit that thing, it would have been all over.
What been slick did, we caught him.
We'd have had to. We'd have to have a debriefing.
You ain't lying.
I mean, I've done some bonehead things, Homer, but leading the tournament, throwing the hook, he's got such an advantage. He's throwing baits with no hooks
That's right.
today.
I just want to show you the here.
I can't believe you showed me that, Homer.
Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail, Lake Fort Gibson in eastern Oklahoma. This is our leader, Homer Humphries, fishing a little place on the lake called Topper's Boat Launch Ramp. You know, these docks are right around the corner from the ramp, and he's just going up and down about 150 yards all day long. Homer now equipped with fish hooks, so he's expecting to do a lot better.
Yeah. I wish they'd go to...
where he is. I don't know what he is, but he's big. Probably drum. No,
good night.
Woo, son. Boy, he's short line.
Jeez, good one, man.
Elizabeth. Man, I don't
good
know.
one.
That fish is suspended way out here.
Homer said the secret word right there. Tommy, I believe he said suspended. And this is a reason why a lot of these guys aren't catching many fish is because they haven't found them. They're very difficult to find when they are suspended, which means they're not on the bottom, they're not running the banks, they're just kind of hanging out there in deep water. And a crankbait will certainly find those fish.
I keep thinking I'm going to keep you honest and smack me one on something different, but... You know, I'm not the smartest fella in the world, but that college education, you know, starting to pay off a little bit.
You know, anytime you find something like this, it's all textbook. You got a creek coming right beside this point right here. It drops off. You got a flat on the other side of it. Just down there at those boathouses like we was down there earlier. That creek comes right up under there at deep water, 20, 25 foot. And those fish, I still feel like are suspended, the ones we're fishing for. And everybody comes through during practice was throwing jigs and tubes and worms, finesse worms and all that up on the bank. So I just backed off and first rattle out of the box, I have one about 2 3/4 pounds. So I take and cut the hooks off that, bend the hooks down on the crankbait, sort of like I did this morning, you know, topwater bait. And I back off and go on down through there and have another pull down. So the boat pressure was so great here. So immediately, you know, hey, I let you know one thing, Oklahoma boat after Oklahoma boat's coming through here.
Right.
So you know when something's going on. It's got to be good. And then we eating dinner the other night. And they say they have all these release, or these jackpot tournaments here. And then I think you told me that also this morning. So it's a natural spot. Fish not gonna go nowhere. There's plenty of shad here. But the whole key thing is the big rocks and a deep water beside it.
Lake like this, you look for those rocks, right, Jerry?
Oh, man, when you see some on the bank like Homer has done here, it's a good idea to go ahead and explore out a little bit deeper. And we're switching from fishermen to fishermen who aren't having a whole lot. Charlie's cleaning his glasses here. Come on, Charlie, get with it.
Charlie Campbell of Missouri, Matt Reed of Texas in the boat with them there, and there's that crankbait.
Hey, and I tell you what really impresses me about Homer, not only that he has found this spot that has got some fish in it, but he knows what to do with them. Hey, Tom, you realize how many guys could come across spots like this and just keep right on going and maybe not know what they had? Homer recognized that and really took advantage of it.
He said he had to leave.
Man,
The
boy's hot.
I believe he'll make it.
Good, he's a keeper. Good keeper. Is that what he come out of?
No. No, he just come out of nowhere. Oh, yeah. He'll make it. What we're doing on this bait, working around the rocks, we get it in them rocks throwing right up there. And you'll notice we on these sharp drops right now, the big rocks. This creek swings in here, and those fish are actually suspended out there in that 10, 15 foot of water. And as this crankbait's going by them, they're pulling off and following. The last 2 days, they've been just being there. But today, they're just really banging. When he goes by them, it's a reflex bite.
Man, that is an ugly green face on that crankbait, but it's definitely the right lure to be using. You know what, it occurs to me that when you have a lot of property to cover, and Homer's fishing from the boat dock to the boat ramp, back and forth, you need something that just covers the water really good, both in depth and in distance, Jimmy, and a crankbait is perfect.
You know what? That mean, green, ugly crankbait has Homer Humphries in great position to run away with this tournament right now on Lake Fort Gibson. And speaking of running away with something, Tommy Sanders is over here with Davey Height, who's in great position to run away with that Angler of the Year award. How's the big dog doing right now?
I tell you what, the champ is looking in fighting shape here, and why not? What a great season, Dave. You kick it off at St. Clair with the win there, another one at the Red River, 2 tour events in a row. You got to feel good about that.
Oh, I do. It's awesome.
All right. We're going to pick your brain a little bit. We appreciate you stopping in. We're going to show you Homer Humphries' spot and see what you think of it. We'll start at the launch ramp, of course, go around the point here, under the highway bridge, up to this spot here near this point, and take a closer look at it right now. You can show us all the elements and what they mean to an angler.
What you have is just a textbook spot. In the fall of the year, the bait fish are typically migrating back into the creek there. And you look for channel bends, and where the channel bend of this creek actually touches the shoreline and the docks that Homer's fishing, it provides a cover for those fish to hold up and have ambush points for the bait.
All right. You see that ledge there? Do you think this time of year automatically crankbait, just like Jerry was talking about?
Absolutely. You know, those fish are probably migrating up in there following the bait fish or feeding on bait fish, and crankbait, spinnerbait would be my 2 choices.
All right. One more element to factor in here, a little boat launch ramp right there. What does that mean?
That's icing on the cake. I think they have a few local tournaments there, and they release tournament fish there, and they just move right out there in position, and, you know, and it gives them a few more fish to replenish there on that spot.
Well, day 2 of our 3-day tournament has been completed. It's weigh-in time. Take a look at this. Peter Winter of Galena, Missouri, the big fish of the tournament, 5 pounds and 3 ounces, netting him $1,000. They're going to be looking where they release that one for sure.
Man, if he would have had anything yesterday, just 2 or 3 pounds, he'd have been right up there with that big fish, but he got skunked yesterday, so that's the bad news.
Jim Carnell is from just down the road in Muskogee, Oklahoma, had himself a good second day. 9 pounds, 10 ounces, to jump all the way into 4th place.
And he's a contender, too, Tommy, and you know, kind of the same deal with him. He had a real bad day the first day, but better watch out for him.
And our leader, Homer Humphries from Mendon, Louisiana, very happy to meet with Fish Fishburne today as he solidifies his lead.
Yesterday we only saw your limit and one other angler come in with 4 bass, so this is going to hold you right there in the lead. Let's get a check on them. 4 largemouth, it looks like that's 7 pounds even, and you're fishing with no hooks.
Fishing no hook. I had a lot of confidence this morning. Them fish went to blowing up out there, And I just figured they'd swallow it, you know, but they wouldn't ever eat it.
Oh man, let's check him out here. Let's hold a couple of those bass up. For ESPN2, the new home of the Bassmasters, Homer Humphries, working his way to $51,000 top prize here at the Citgo Bassmaster Oklahoma Open, presented by Skeeter Boats.
Homer Humphries, 18 pounds and 6 ounces, a formidable lead going into the final day of this tournament. But now, no more showing off. He's going to have to show up with hooks tomorrow.
ESPN2's exclusive presentation of the Citgo Bassmasters Tour is brought to you by Kumo, by Lowrance, and by Bass Pro Shops.
Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail, our first Central Open of the year, presented by Skeeter on Lake Fort Gibson near Wagner, Oklahoma, eastern part of the state. That is our leader, Homer Humphries. Right behind him, Russ Moran, Rick Morris, and Jim Carnell.
And you know what, Tommy? I didn't really have the right to kind of badmouth the Open or the Invitational events, their format. Actually, one thing I would like to point out that's a good thing is, hey, did you see the guy he just went past?
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
That's his good luck spectator. We will talk about that later on.
But he shadowed him all week.
As we watch Jim Carnell make his first cast of the day, as he said, I did want to say that one of the good things about this is differing from a Pro-Am event. In a Pro-Am,
I don't think he's a keeper.
You are
a
spectator in the back of the boat. In these events, everybody's a pro, and the guy in the back of the boat has decisions to make, too. So you learn quite a little bit there. Jim gets a good start, and he's incidentally is fishing and about a 5/16 ounce advantage jig.
Here we go.
Not too many creeks and rivers here on Lake Fort Gibson. This is the main river, in fact, and this is where we find Rick Morris on the Grand River.
And boy, he is really fishing in current. As a matter of fact, he has rigged himself up a battery system where he can run his trolling motor all day long. He's got a tough deal up there.
The first day I fished down this, the conditions were just like this. And every pass I made down this bank, we had 2 keeper bites. We didn't catch them all, but we caught some of them. Yesterday, it was a lot slower. We had 2 bites early, and that was it all day. So the day could play out to be a great day. It could play out to be no bites at all, or it could be somewhere in between. That's how it always is, right?
I haven't had 5 pounds on all the keepers I caught combined. I haven't seen a big one like that.
Well, I only had
Over to
one
Charlie Campbell starting out the day in second place. Charlie from Missouri, his partner Lee Knight from Texas.
And you know what, Tommy? Sometimes we don't say much or really focus on the guy in the back of the boat. It's kind of
not too far up,
kind of a shame, but when you get right down to it, most of the time they're out of contention, and we're kind of zeroed in on the Charlie Campbells and the Homer Humphries in the front of the boat.
There he is, Wayne.
This is Homer's spot right there. That's the Toppers boat launch ramp right there. That's where they have those tournaments we were referring to earlier.
Hey, and you had dinner with Homer the other night.
I did. Homer had a big feed over at his house. It was nice. Man, he can cook that fried chicken. He did a great job on it. Doing a good job today. Now, of course, he mentions there's a lot of gravel because it's a boat launch ramp. A lot of gravel always around situations like that. It's another great place for him to find his fish.
And don't be confused about what he said and what Davey Height said about this is where they turn fish loose from other tournaments. That doesn't mean that happened like last night. That
no.
You know, through the months and the years, fish are released there, and that's what really helps the area.
Wayne, yesterday, that sun was out. I took and used that deep little end virtually all day because it had them fish deeper suspended.
Yeah.
And the day was cloud cover. I'm gonna probably stay with this shallow running baby little end and had diving ace crankbait of mine. I caught 2 on that ace the first day, and the rest of them was on that end. But hopefully we'll be able to stay with shallow stuff and they'll stay out of that brush where won't nobody go in there and catch a 25-pound stringer today.
I don't think he's gonna keep. What? I don't think he's gonna keep. But it's a bite.
Well, added to all the other things that are making the fishing tough here, we've got a 14-inch length limit to contend with.
And isn't it amazing how when the length limit is 12 inches, you catch 11.5 inches, and now it's 14 and everyone's catching 13 inches.
I've often wondered about that. How do the fish know what the length limit is?
Wayne, this bank here, I don't know where it's a washout. I guess it just dug it out when they made this ramp. But it's got just a super, real subtle, real quick drop. It's about, you know, not a major drop. It's about 1.5 foot, 2 foot drop right off that bank. But it's enough them fish will cruise up in here, and that little bit of breeze blowing in here today is making some shad come in here. It hadn't been many shad in here. It's just been bluegills. These bluegills about 3 fingers long or 3 fingers wide, and boy, them little bass about that 14-inch limit, love them.
Bluegill is the word. When you think about bluegill, you think about that crankbait you were showing us a few minutes ago. That's the deal.
Underwater shot, that's why they're after that particular crankbait. And you know what? Sometimes I don't think the color is any big deal. But when things are as tough as they are right now, man, you better be throwing the right color. And your bait better be running correctly. And, you know, all your ducks better be in ardor. And Tommy, one more thing about that crankbait, and he is thrown against the bank with a topwater bait right now.
Yeah.
But one more thing about that crankbait is that it is deadly on suspended fish. And as we said earlier, a lot of these fish are suspended.
But there we see Homer doing something completely different. Middle of the morning, he didn't just pick up and throw that topwater. He had to see something, right?
Yeah, they were. There were some little fish probably chasing a school of fish down. Hey, there's the guy in the red boat, Tommy.
Yeah, that's his mentor. Not a bad little fish up there, but again, we're up against a 14-inch length limit.
Not gonna make it. However.
Come on. It's a keeper. Oh, no, it's not a keeper. Oh, shoot. We're looking for 14, folks, and I don't think this one's gonna make it. It's a little spotted bass. Pretty, though. She measures in at 13 1/4. Practice catch and release.
Well, as long as we have Davey Hyde here, we might as well take advantage of it. We're going to lean on your expertise in just a minute. Meanwhile, let's get our anglers positioned on the lake. Jim Carnell in this little cut of water right off the main lake, this spot right here. Homer Humphries is the story. The little spot is called Toppers. It is right up here. Here's where we find Charlie Campbell, right in this little cut. A beautiful little low-water dam up on the Grand River is where we find Rick Morris. Now, Homer again is the story. The crankbait is his weapon of choice. Davey, I've seen you throw a crankbait. You do it beautifully, but what happens once that crankbait gets underwater is the important part, right?
Absolutely, Tommy. You know, when fish aren't actively feeding and you're a weekend angler, you can go home. But when you're a tournament fisherman, you've got to figure out a way to catch those fish, even if they're not hungry. And a crankbait is an excellent choice. Homer's using this, and he's using the bait around rocks and around the docks that he's catching these fish. And he's making that bait deflect off of these pieces of cover that the fish are relating to. A bass is a predator, and when that bait hits that target and deflects off, it looks like something injured, and they just attack it.
The principle being they're lazy just like we are. They'd rather have something delivered to them, rather run down something slow than something that's moving at full speed.
Absolutely, an easy meal for them.
All right, the man on top of the stats right here, Jimmy Dykes, is standing by with all the rest of the info.
Man, if you're a bass, how could you possibly ever pass up a crankbait like that one? The Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail on the Red River in Louisiana left us with an impressive top 10 in our Angler of the Year race. Jay Yellis added a 9th place finish in Shreveport to bring him up to 2nd place. And of course, Davey Hyde's back-to-back tour event wins has him in that lead position, and he'll be looking to hold on to that spot when he heads to the next tour event at Lake Toho in Florida. Of course, the anglers we're watching compete here today on Fort Gibson are vying for qualifying berths in the Bassmasters Classic to be held this summer. And out in the Western Open Division, Michael Gibney has the lead in the points race for Classic qualifying. We have another Western Division event coming up in 3 weeks from Lake Oroville in California. In other news, a recent settlement in federal court could mean cleaner water for the Mississippi River and Louisiana Delta, one of the nation's most fertile and fragile wetlands. But the cleanup will not be cheap, and it won't happen overnight. Currently, more than 1 billion gallons of untreated sewage pour into the waterways around the Baton Rouge area every year, contributing to the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico each summer. The recent decision in federal court will require Louisiana's capital city to upgrade its antiquated sewage system. Experts say the cleanup will cost an estimated $330 to $460 million over the next decade. The Louisiana Delta was the host for the Bassmasters Classic last year and in 1999 when, of course, Davey Height took home the title.
Jimmy, the Big Easy was the place, New Orleans, Louisiana, and when Davey Height hit town, he found a place that was hard to get to, but a place with a lot of big bass. He wound up outdistancing the field by almost 10 pounds, and winning the Classic over the likes of Denny Brower, Larry Nixon, Gary Klein, and Ron Sheffield.
Bass Classics has been brought to you by Citgo.
Man, our Bass Classic today was about Height, and he is our guest that we are so clever.
There you Wayne. All right. Woo. 3 days, we finally got him.
Homer fished that dock, like he said there, every day since he's been there, and he finally caught a fish on it.
This week's Fish Eye View has been brought to you by Long John Silver's.
Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail, Lake Ft Gibson in Oklahoma. Fishing has been tough all week. One reason why, the largemouth bass virus.
I think the impact on this lake has been seen in this tournament. You know, 2 or 3 years ago, there were quite a few tournaments that came to this lake, and you know, you needed 18 to 20 pounds to win a tournament over here, and usually if you didn't have 10 to 12 pounds, you weren't going to make a check. And we're seeing one of the lower weight tournaments that Bassmaster's ever had, and it's just a beautiful fishery.
Not gonna make it. I don't think he's gonna keep, but it's a bite.
It's a keeper. Oh, no, it's not a keeper. Pretty, though.
See those red spots? That's what they say is part of the virus. I don't know if you can see that or not. Better hurry up and get him back in the water.
The largemouth bass virus is a viral infection of fish. It is more pronounced in largemouth bass than we've seen in other species. It attacks the swim bladder of the fish. The fish that are infected are disorientated. They swim on the surface of the water. But like other virus infections, similar to what humans get, flu and colds, it acts by the same mechanism. The virus was first discovered on Santee Cooper Reservoir in South Carolina in 1995. It infects, it's pretty much centered on the southeastern United States. From the Carolinas over west, we've discovered it in Oklahoma and Texas, as far north as Missouri. A lot of lakes never exhibit a fish kill. In fact, most of them don't. From a fishing standpoint, you probably won't ever notice unless you see fish that are dead or dying on the water. The virus is real specific for its fish host. It doesn't infect humans. You don't have to go through any special preparation or anything like that. You can eat the fish and prepare it just as normally, and humans will be safe.
You know, if a guy had a live well full of water on, let's say, Sam Rayburn, and he went to Lake Fork and didn't drain that water out of there, obviously he'd have a chance to transfer it over in there.
We know that the virus can live in wet live wells and wet lower units, and if that boat is transferred to another lake, you have the chance of infecting a lake that's not already infected with largemouth bass virus.
In my heart, I believe it's a natural thing. Just like some things happens to lake, you know, lakes cycle. I think the bass virus is not a thing that's going to wipe bass fishing out or bass fisheries out all over the country. I think you're going to get it in a select few lakes from here to here. It's going to cycle through and go away.
There's lots of different diseases that infect fisheries, and over time, fish have adapted to them in their natural environment, and this will probably just be another one that they'll eventually have to adapt to.
This week's Tour Life has been brought to you by Skeeter.
It's real important that we just, take care of the resources. Rick said on the stage yesterday, he was telling these people they really need to watch what they do with their fish, because all eyes are on us, especially when on a lake like this, when the fishing's tough. You certainly don't want to take care of the ones you do catch.
I've been saving my best spot to last. Don't know where it's at, but...
Hey, we haven't seen Homer Humphrey in a while,
There's
but
one.
My hat's off to all the other anglers. You know, there's 300 plus anglers out there, and most of them all know where Homer's point was, and nobody bothered him there. I thought that was great.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie Campbell now getting himself into that really hot race for second place. That fish gives him right at 11 pounds. Jim Carnell also there with 11. Moran, 11.5 pounds, so it's pretty tight for that second spot.
Okay, let's see here, and I'll be put the hook out of in here. Okay, I got him. Yeah, I got him. All right, guys, finally got a fish here. Lee, if he'll measure, get the measuring board. You know, just one of these fish that'll keep like catching a 5 or 6 pounder in most places. Oh, he about got away right there.
Drop him back on the leg.
Hey, 15 inches, man.
It's a trophy.
Now, if I don't lose him. Hey, do you want to look at him and see what one looks like?
I've caught 2 on this log, 1 each day. Nobody there today. There he is. There he is.
It's gonna make it in.
Yeah, it's a keeper spot. Let me fix the live well for you.
Yes. Guys, it's taken me 3 days to get this one keeper fish.
That's a keeper.
Good net job, what do you think?
Maybe. He's kind of short. Please, 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 pretty please. Because he made it the first time I swung him. Yeah, he's there.
He's there. Good job.
My goodness.
So Rick Morris, now the 4th guy in the race for second place. He's at 11 pounds by virtue of that last fish.
And Jim Carnell is fishing a little sunken pile of rocks. And evidently, Tommy got his rig in the wrong place on that rock. Oh, man, that's got to be painful.
Sit down there and retied that too.
Oh, man. Just kind of back out here just for a second. Dadgummit.
And another thing that makes this really hurt bad is Jim and Homer Humphrey are probably the only 2 anglers out there who are not fishing for one fish. Jim Carnell thinks that he's got a good bunch of fish out on that little honey hole of his, and boy, to miss one of them really is upsetting.
Just no room for error at all, and it could have been anything, right? Just a frayed spot on his line, a bad tie job on his lure, but whatever the reason, he can't go back and get it now.
And here's the proof that there are some other fish out there, even though this is a small one now. There are some fish around their boat.
That other pro in the boat here is Robert Harty from Texas, and that fish is probably not going to keep. What these guys have to do is keep Homer Humphries from running away with this thing. You can look at the scoreboard now. They're not doing a very good job of it.
That's beautiful,
Bassmaster Tournament Trail, Lake Fort Gibson in eastern Oklahoma, the Central Open, first one of the year, and the leader by a long shot, Homer Humphries, 21.5 pounds. Homer has caught a couple of good keepers already today, so he is in terrific shape. This is Rick Morris of Virginia, doing his best to try to keep up, but boy, he's going to have a miracle to overtake Homer Humphries.
Oh, it's a good one. Net. I'm going to trust you. Yes! Woo!
Good job, man. Good fish.
All right.
Good fish.
Barely got the keeper hook. That's what we're looking for. Well, we've been fishing for hours and we haven't had a bite. And it's hard to keep your concentration going when you haven't had a bite in that many hours. So we idled over some shallow water and come all the way up here by this shallow water dam. We fished this earlier and didn't get a bite. I just came down the rock with a spinnerbait, an Excalibur spinnerbait. I think the fish followed me out off the rock. I got the hit halfway to the boat. He didn't even hit it. He just kind of got heavy and got on there. The fish put up a really good fight. It's a healthy, you know, 2.5 pound, 3 pound largemouth, and he was barely hooked by the keeper hook. I told my partner, I said, make sure you get it. And I went to hoist it in the boat, and if he wouldn't have netted it, it probably would have fell off. It was just barely skin hooked. So I feel really fortunate with that fish.
Rick Marsh trying his darndest to make a comeback here, but Davey, he may be too late. Fishing is too tough on this lake to pick up any ground. In talking about fishing being too tough, I keep thinking about the scene we looked at just a little bit. Can't get it out of my mind. Jim Cornell worked really hard to get to that spot, and there's what happened, Davey. And I can't help but think that was a terrible mistake.
Yeah, it looked like he had their adrenaline really flowing.
You know, we're talking about small fish, so you know, you don't have to be too rough on them. And yeah, we could hear him say, I can feel the rocks. He did everything right, and then you're saying that you think he just swung at him a little too hard.
Yeah, you know, he had a lot rolling in his mind there. I'm sure the pressure of being in contention to win a big tournament like that, and camera boat being on him, those kind of things. It's really easy to happen until you kind of get a little more accustomed to being in those situations.
Occasionally, do these guys and you guys not take enough care of your line?
Well, that's true. A lot of people don't, but I replace my line every single night after I fish, because it only takes a few minutes, and a fish, especially in a tough tournament like this, that you might lose because you break your line, could cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. So I take the time. You know, I think the preparation is real important to make sure everything is in the tip-top shape.
And you know, and I also hear the statement, I didn't execute well today. That's what we're talking about right there. Absolutely. Oh. And Jim may shoot us, but he probably knows that that was a mistake.
We're back out to the lake and again with Jim Carnell, who may get one more chance.
This like a good one. It is.
Yeah! Give me 5, man. God, that's beautiful.
Hey, stay back just a little bit, please.
Oh, I got a line out.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord.
Put him in there.
Maybe there's another one.
Get him in there. Hold on, let me get back. Yeah.
I bet that one I broke off a while ago was a good one, too.
Yeah.
Back over to Homer Humphries, who's definitely found the best spot on the lake, and he's enjoying some local support.
There's the man right there.
What did I tell you yesterday? I've been following Homer Humphries for all these 3 days, and every time I leave, he catches a fish. So I've been leaving and coming back, and he'd have a fish.
Boy, I tell you what.
That's what I've been doing, and it's been giving him some good luck. So that's what it's about, I guess.
Well, Charlie Campbell is not enjoying a spectator gallery like Homer Humphries is. It's just him and old Lee Knight out there trying to make something happen, and that's the hardest thing to do on a day like today in conditions like they are.
Hey, and the fact that they haven't caught many fish has nothing to do with their abilities. Actually, these guys are more impressive than let's just take the guys up on Lake St. Clair where they were catching lots of limits, and the fish were easy. Well, these guys, you know, they're Tommy, it's almost like they've got a pitching duel going on right here, and sometimes that's really a tougher situation than when you get around lots of fish where you're going to be culling and so on.
Well, the day has ended, and a lot of the anglers on the lake today are happy for that fact, but Rick Morris is anxious to see what is yet to come as he heads to the weigh-in. He's one of the anglers that's vying for second place.
The Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail is brought to you by Citgo and in part by Long John Silver's, by Motor Guide, and by Skeeter. The
Citgo Bassmaster Tournament Trail, Lake Fort Gibson here in southeast Oklahoma. This is the first Central Open of the year. And for the first time all week, we got blue skies and nice weather as we get ready for the final reckoning. Charlie Campbell has hung in there all day today, got himself a couple of fish, but the week has been such for Charlie, so tough to consider this on the second day of this three-day tournament. Charlie zeroed and still found himself in the final 5 on the third day of the tournament. Now, I want you to take a look at this bass right here. Kurt Johnson, 5 pounds and 13 ounces. Kurt Johnson nets himself a grand on the final day of this tournament. Rick Morris, the pro from Virginia, trying hard to squeak into second place here, just couldn't get the job done today. Those two fish in a total of 4 pounds and 6 ounces gets Rick 4th place. Monty Freilich of Martin, South Dakota is the man who came from back in the pack. Monty also zeroed on day number 2 of the tournament, but caught 8 pounds, 11 ounces on day 3 to sack up 3rd place. Just about done with his weigh-in duties here. Jim Carnell, the pro from Muskogee, the local favorite, did well today. 8 pounds and 1 ounce, but good enough only for 2nd place for Jim Carnell. And Homer Humphries, the pro from Minden, Louisiana, has been at this game since the early 80s, but has never had a chance to step into the winner's circle. Did it today with 22 pounds and 3 ounces.
You know, when you own fish like that, you really don't realize how tough it is, but from 11 o'clock to closing time, and today after that second fish, it was tough.
Never give up.
Never. We kept chunking. I wouldn't get off of what I was doing because it produced all week, so don't ever leave what brought you there.
Homer, I hope it holds up for you, buddy. $51,000 for first place. Homer Humphries right here. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Uh-oh.
The folks here in Oklahoma appreciate Homer Humphries' efforts all week long. Also getting a lot of congratulations from his fellow pros who've been pulling for him for a long, long time. Good going, Homer. And we also want to say a special thanks to Davey Hyde for stopping by today and lending us his pro's perspective. Next week, we head to Central Florida and Lake Toho, where in January 2001, all the records were shattered. Single-day catch, 4-day total by Dean Rojas. What will happen on Toho this time when the Bassmaster Tour comes to town? We'll see you next week.
This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com.